Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you to my colleague Peter Roskam, who we came in together when we won our election in 2006. It's been a privilege to serve with Mr. Roskam, who is not only the head and co-chair of the Israel Caucus, but also a strong defender of a strong United States national security posture, one that has helped to lead the world into safety for decades, and one that we continue to maintain for the benefit of the American people. You see, this is a very interesting time that we're in. We have virtually watched the hinge of history turn just in the events of these last several weeks. Why do I say that? I say that because the Obama administration and the negotiators of the Obama administration have entered into a deal that could effectively guarantee that Iran will obtain the certainty of a nuclear weapon. Now, I know that it is the stated intention of the Obama administration that just the opposite of that will happen. But there is a big difference between theory and intention and the outcome of the result. Today, we listened to members from the Obama administration and members of the negotiating team from the Obama administration, and they seem quite convinced in the theory of stopping Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And the theory goes something like this. It says that we believe that Iran has the capacity to continue to enrich uranium and do it for a peaceful purpose. They believe that it's possible to verify that Iran would do that. But what about the reality? What's the reality of what the supreme leader of Iran has said their intentions are with this program? Just prior to the signing of the agreement, the supreme leader was not vague. He was quite clear. He gave a speech on Press TV. He wanted the world to know what his intentions were. And he gave a speech in front of tens of thousands of paramilitary troops in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. And he said that it will be Iran's position that we will not change, in his words, our nuclear program one iota. So apparently, according to the Supreme Leader, the program, as Iran has originally envisioned it, will go on. It will go on at the same pace that it was going on before, without any change in his word. Once the agreement was struck, there was a real question. And the question was this: will Iran maintain the indigenous, inherent, quote-unquote, right to enrich uranium? You see, that's the whole ball game, Mr. Speaker. Will Iran have the right to enrich uranium? What do you need to build a nuclear weapon? You need fuel for that weapon, whether it's plutonium or whether it's uranium. Well, Iran wants to make sure that they achieve the goal. So they're engaging both in developing plutonium and uranium. They have a heavy water reactor, the Iraq facility, and the Iraq facility is under construction. We have a 6-month interim agreement where we're supposed to get to a final negotiation. The plutonium facility is not built yet, but it's under construction. One of those items is building a road to the reactor. That road continues to be built. There is no effort to stop that from being done. And there is virtually no way for us to be able to stop mobile components from being built elsewhere and eventually brought into the heavy water reactor for the plutonium site. That's an issue. That's a big issue. And the other one being enrichment. We know today that Iran has something like 19,000 centrifuges. A minimum 10,000 of those centrifuges are spinning. So much so that the estimate is they have 9 and 10 tons of enriched uranium. If we were serious about stopping Iran from creating a nuclear weapon, there's several simple things we would do. We would make sure that Iran would shut down the heavy water plutonium reactor, and we would make sure that Iran would dismantle, take a sledgehammer to the centrifuges. Gone. That hasn't happened. Not to one. The centrifuges remain. So if you have centrifuges enriching, if you have enriched uranium, if you are continuing to enrich, I'd say you've got a program. Now, this is very interesting because we just concluded a negotiation. From my experience as a former federal tax litigation attorney, I did a lot of negotiating. Usually when two sides are negotiating, they do it for a reason. And the reason is because they want to be better off, both parties, they want to be better off based upon the agreement that they negotiated. Now, it seems to me something happened along the way during this negotiation. It makes me wonder if the Obama administration negotiators forgot which side they were negotiating for. Now, why do I say that? I say that because take a look at what Iran got out of the deal. And I want to give full attribution to Illinois Senator Mark Kirk, who created this terrific graphic. And this is what Senator Kirk lets us know about the agreement. What we are getting out of the deal are 0 centrifuges dismantled. These are the machines that create the fuel for a nuclear weapon. Not one will be dismantled out of 19,000. 0 uranium of the 9 to 10 tons will be shipped out of Iran. So the material remains in Iran. The ability to continue to create more material remains in Iran. Looks like a pretty good get for Iran. 0 nuclear facilities are closed. We know that there's even more than we thought originally. There's Natanz, there's Fordo, Parchin, and the plutonium reactor at Iraq, and let alone other covert programs we're not aware of. There's also no delay on the plutonium reactor. In fact, the supreme leader in Iran made it abundantly clear. They said, we read the agreement to say that we are not going to stop any construction on the plutonium reactor. I would say that's a violation of the agreement right there. What's been the reaction of the Obama administration? What's been the reaction of the negotiators? Do they have egg on their faces? Do they look a little foolish from this agreement that they struck? We haven't heard anything from the current negotiators. There's also no stop in the missile testing. So if Iran has a nuclear weapon, if they have the fuel for a nuclear weapon, and if they have the capability to deliver that weapon through missile testing, I'd say they've got something. There's also no stop in terrorism from Iran, and there's no stop in human rights abuses. Many Americans aren't aware that there are Americans who are being held hostage today in Iran. When Ronald Reagan dealt with the Soviet Union to try to end the Cold War, Ronald Reagan handed the Soviets a list of dissidents that he wanted freed in order for him to begin these talks with the Soviet Union. He sent a signal to the Soviet Union. It said, in America, we believe every American life counts. That sent a very strong message. In the case of the Obama administration negotiators, they didn't even bring it up. They didn't demand that one American be released before we talk. Now, this is interesting because the Obama administration put a lot of pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. And he said, you, Mr. Prime Minister, have to agree to release over 100 murderous thugs, including murderers who murdered an American, before the Palestinians will come to the table to negotiate with you on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That was our president who put pressure under the Prime Minister. You got to release thugs in order to negotiate. We would put that kind of pressure on Israel, and we wouldn't put that kind of pressure on Iran? You see, that's why, Mr. Speaker, I asked the question. Did the negotiators forget which nation they were negotiating for? Because it looks to me like the score is pretty clear. United States 0, Iran made out on the deal. The sad thing about that final score, and let's hope it's not the final score, is that, again, the hinge of history turns. And if you have an Iran with a nuclear weapon, it won't be just Iran. You will explode proliferation. Saudi Arabia will have a nuclear weapon. Egypt will have a nuclear weapon. We will have a nuclear weapon most likely in Lebanon. And then at that point, what will happen with terrorist organizations like Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, the Al-Nusra Front, and on from there? The world changes. The hinge of history turns. And that's why this isn't political. That's why it is bipartisan here tonight. It's why Mr. Roskam has taken this very important, courageous step of holding this. Members of Congress can weigh in, because we aren't about bashing the Obama administration. That's not why we're here. We're here because we believe in national security, America's national security, Israel's national security, and peace across the world. That's Pax Americana. America doing everything that we can to be forward of keeping the peace in the world. This action nearly guarantees war and a threatened nuclear strike. We can prevent that. But the final deal that comes out in these final P5+1 negotiations must be very simple. Close down the plutonium reactor, zero right to enrich for Iran, and zero processing. If you do that, then we'll have a deal. And I yield back.
Mr. Speaker.